that is in the air, that has been lofted from the ground, that means that there is likely a confirmed tornado north of Coffeyville, right around Alabama Highway 69, that's marching its way to the east at 55 miles per hour. Thomasville, get in shelter now. Lowest level of your home, away from doors and away from windows. You know, anyone in northern Clarke County, call them now, because based on what we're seeing on this debris signature around Alabama 69 north of US 84, that is debris being lofted up by the radar. So anyone near the Centerpoint Baptist Church is in that general region. Make sure, anyone near Clear Springs Drilling, make sure you're taking that threat seriously, because when we see signatures that strong on our debris tracker, that is a huge indicator of big-time trouble that's marching its way to the north and east at about 55 miles an hour. So it's a fast-moving storm, and based on a 55-mile-an-hour rate of speed, Matt, let's see if we can clock it to the north and east at 55 and see about how long it'll take to get to Thomasville, so we can have a little bit of a heads up for roughly how long it'll be there. And it's 9:33, so that gives you 20 minutes. If you're in Thomasville, you have 20 minutes, if this thing holds together, to get into shelter. That's not a lot of time. Camden, it would be to you just after 10 in the morning, but the big issue for our area is Thomasville, which would be just after 9:30 based on a 55-mile-an-hour speed, and that is a strong signature we're seeing north of Coffeyville, and unfortunately, we're seeing a strong debris signature as well, which means that we could easily have a tornado on the ground, because the only reason you get a debris track to show up on our radar system is if debris has been lofted up in the air. Now, the new scan has kind of faded away. That's a good thing. Every time we get a new sweep, we see this change. What we can do is we can back it up a few frames and follow it from where it was when we had that scan earlier, just north of Coffeyville, and right about, let's see, let's back it up a little more.
There it goes. So that was at 9:06 right there.
Yeah, so that was 7 minutes. So that was it right there, and here it is. And then it's moving northeast, so it's becoming a little more broad. So that means the debris tracker is having a tougher time finding debris lofted from the radar, but it would be in this spot if it's holding together. It would be just to the east of Alabama 69 and north of Alabama 154, just to the north and east of Coffeyville, on track to move into Thomasville within the next 20 minutes. It would be there just after 9:30 this morning, so that gives anyone in the Thomasville area roughly 20 minutes to get into shelter, get into your safe place. Where you see this green on the velocity display, that is your possible tornado. That's east of West Bend Road, and that's east of Alabama 69, and it's going to be marching toward US 43, and it's going to be marching that way really, really fast. One risk that we were concerned about today was the risk of tornadoes. We had seen only a couple of tornado warnings go off in Mississippi earlier this morning. But now, this is the strongest signature we've seen all day, and unfortunately, it's showing up in the northern part of our area right there. Where Matt's drawing that blue arrow, that's where your possible tornado is, and northeast is where it's going. That's why we're very concerned about Thomasville and northern Clarke County. So you've got to make sure that if you know anyone in that area, you're giving them the heads up. If they're not paying attention to the weather, they got to know that they got to get in shelter, and they got to be paying attention to this and following it very closely. Hopefully when we get the next few sweep scans, dying off, but for now, that is not the case. For now, we're seeing the tornado signature holding together. Even in the latest sweep scan, it still is. You have a really huge straight line wind threat with this, but where you see that dab of green is where the possible tornado is still possibly holding itself together as it's continuing to march toward US 43 at roughly 50 miles an hour to the north and to the east. The Weather Service said that they indicated the tornado was right around, so the tornado warning was right over Coffeyville, 20 miles west of Grove Hill, moving east at 55 miles per hour, and that the tornado was observed. It was a confirmed tornado that was near Coffeyville, and that goes along with what we saw from that debris tracker earlier, when it certainly looked like we had debris lofted up from the radar. And so we're just going to continue to stay with this as we monitor this over the next several minutes. For those of you that are just joining us, I'm meteorologist Michael White along with meteorologist Matt Barentine. And Matt, this is definitely the strongest we've seen so far this morning.
Yeah, it certainly is. The good news here is that it's over timberland at the moment here north of Highway 154. So that's the good news. The bad news is Thomasville eventually will be in its sights, but you got some time there in Thomasville. We mentioned this. Hopefully you were listening just a little while ago, watching that area along that Boeing line. This is the area I pinpointed that we had possibilities of seeing another spin-up tornado, and that's exactly what we've seen. This is going to continue to work its way generally off to the north side of Highway 154. That's Highway 154. It snakes there through the timberland there of Clarke County, and that's going to keep working its way up to the north and east, like Michael said, at a very fast rate of speed. We're talking at about 55 miles per hour. So if you're in time, because it's here comes the new scan, and yeah, we still see it on there. It's right through here, just north of Highway 154. That little area right there. I know it can be kind of hard to pick out, but that's that's the circulation that has a possible tornado. And I say possible, we have seen debris lofted by this, so we know this was on the ground at some point. We just don't know if it continues to be so on the ground. You just saw another update too there, Michael, right there. They just trimmed the box back there. They are hyper-focused right there in that circulation.
And they're also hyper-focused on Thomasville being right in the polygon warning box, which means that the circulation is about 5 miles south of the community of Campbell right now, but they still have it clocked at 55 miles an hour as far as its movement. So again, if you're in Thomasville, that gives you less than 10 minutes to get yourself into shelter and to get in place before this potential tornado, rolls in towards you. It was confirmed over Coffeyville earlier, and when we were showing the debris tracker, we could see debris lofted from the radar. We started to see that signature weakening and fading as it tracked its way more toward the northern end of Clarke County. But as far as dealing with severe weather for the rest of the area, it's still going to be a while, because these storms are going to work their way southward slowly. We're just hearing from the Weather Service that another wind surge this may be our next tornado concern near Salipta. Do you know where that is, Matt?
Yeah, Washington. I'm sorry,
Washington County. Okay.
Yeah, a little far to the south here.
So that means we're going to have another possible tornadic signature that we're going to have to monitor and follow very carefully over the next few minutes. Now, there's no other tornado warnings active, but the chance is certainly there that we could see one as the morning continues. So we do have this potential tornadic signature that's approaching Thomasville, and it will be there, we said at about, 9:25, so that's less than 10 minutes, because it's moving at 55 miles per hour. So you've got to make sure you're in the lowest level of your home, away from doors and away from windows. First floor bathroom, first floor hall closet are pretty much the best options and the best places you can be. Want to remind you to download, we debuted it yesterday, our brand new Fox 10 News weather app. Go ahead and pick that up. You can scan the QR code that's on your screen right now, point the camera at it, or you can go to the Apple App Store, or you can go to the Google Play Store. You'll get all of our live videos, the Fox 10 Futurecast, our latest weather discussions. It is a phenomenal app. We're thrilled that we had this thing launched yesterday, just in time for the severe weather threat today. And unfortunately, the severe weather threat is playing up like we had expected. The only thing that was kind of unexpected was the fact that it is moving a bit slower than the line was originally expected to do, but it is doing a lot of damage to us with tornado warnings and severe thunderstorm warnings across the Gulf Coast. And Matt, point out on the map the second spot where the Weather Service is monitoring conditions.
Here.
Right there, just south of US 84. So we got one right there. And look, Matt, that signature is still strong, just north of Alabama Highway 154, and another one that's just south of US 84, both of which are veering their way to the north and east. So Thomasville, you are under the gun, and you need to make sure you're in shelter. Grove Hill, you're technically not in a tornado warning, but you need to be very cautious right now. You need to be paying very close attention to this line of storms as it approaches you, because it's getting closer and closer to this section of a US 43, and it's going to be moving and it has not slowed down at all. It has not sped up. 55 miles an hour appears to be the speed it's been staying at for the last 15-20 minutes. So the estimates of time are pretty much correct. Matt, let's clock it again. Let's go from that green velocity couplet, veer it at 55 miles an hour, and see how long it's going to take to get to Thomasville, so we know exactly how long you have if you live there to get into shelter. I can't imagine it's going to be a very long period of time. Based on our estimates, it's going to be to you at 9:36, so you have a little less than 15 minutes to make sure you are in your safe place and in shelter as we continue to monitor this severe weather threat that is going to be a while before it works its way out of our area. Now, what you see in this box is Hal Sherrick, one of our Fox 10 News reporters, driving through Clarke County, and he's working his way toward these storms without getting into any sort of immediate danger, but hoping to get some decent video, because soon, since he's driving west, we're going to see the flashes in the sky from the lightning. We're going to see the sky getting darker from all of the heavy rain that's going to be showing up, but he is on his way toward that section of thunderstorm as it's slowly maneuvering its way to the east and toward the southeast. But this particular tornado warning is going to be up till at least 10 o'clock. So it's still going to be a while till we know whether or not the warning is going to be canceled, whether or not it's just going to last for the next 38 minutes, or whether or not it's going to just switch over to a straight line wind threat. So we are monitoring that with the Weather Service chat, and we're monitoring that obviously with our storm tracker radar in real time, and you're seeing it as we're seeing it. That's the beauty of this system, is we can all kind of track it and watch it together. Potential tornado right there in that section of the polygon box where you see that little dab of green north of State Highway 154. And it's going to be working its way to the north and east at 55 miles per hour. It's going to be moving quickly toward US 43 and then eventually off into Wilcox County. The debris tracker not showing much of anything. The debris tracker was much more well defined when we had that storm over Coffeyville than it is now. That is certainly a good thing, because that means the odds of a tornado on the ground are lower. But that doesn't mean that you're in the all clear, because the straight line winds, the Weather Service has just pointed out, almost hurricane force. Look at that, Matt, 70 miles an hour approaching Grove Hill with that bowing out signature. And it says that any storms inside that cell have the potential to increase in rotation. So that's something we're just going to have to continue to follow over the next several minutes as we continue to slowly watch these storms as they sink their way to the south and to the east. And Matt, what is your take on the fact that we have not really seen the signature fading away yet?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's out there over timberland right now. We're not seeing a defined debris signature, so that's good, but it is approaching Thomasville. You've got about 10 minutes, maybe a little less than Thomasville. You need to be taking shelter right now, because regardless of whether this is still on the ground or not, you've got about a 70-mile-per-hour wind gust about to come on through. So you don't want to be out and about in that is for sure. We've got our Hal Sherrick that's not too far away there down Highway 43. He's going to be letting us know if there's any damage reports or anything like that they come across. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. We're also keeping an eye on the other bits of this bowing segment, because like I mentioned, anywhere along this line, you see how it's bowing out like that? Those are the extremely strong winds of about 7 that are blowing out here along that line. And where these tend to bow out and you get a little notch in these, that's where we'll start to see circulations. And we saw that with this one. We called this one just about 10 minutes before it spun up a tornado, and sure enough it did, because we saw the bow and how it was sort of moving its way eastward. Right through here, right along Highway 84, just to the south of this, we'll have to watch right here. It's not showing up too well, but we'll have to watch that area here north of Grove Hill, see if another circulation begins to spin on up. And as we look farther south, not nearly as dynamic here on the southern end of this. So that's some good news. If you're in southern Washington County, now in Mobile County, we're not seeing the dynamic action down here. It's all confined really to this one main bowing segment that is right now moving through Clarke County, right through here. It goes from about Jackson up past Coffeyville and up towards Thomasville. That is where we are seeing the strongest winds. That's where we're seeing the turbulence in the atmosphere, and that's where we're seeing the main threat here right now of tornadic activity.
Well, Matt, you know, we're talking about the fact that the bowing out segment is approaching 43. That's where Hal is right now. Hal, just tell us what you're seeing right now.
Guys, you can take a look. You've got the same view I do right now at 43. We're north of Fulton at the moment, and we're approaching Springfield, and then of course into Thomasville. So we're just now entering the warned area. As you're talking, we're feeling a lot of heavy winds come on. The rain is coming on. So you're looking due north at 43 with our storm tracker camera, and back over the way I'm panning now to the west and north is where this area is you guys are warning people about, that's moving in towards Thomasville. You can see the low-lying heavy clouds. You can see the lightning flickering in the sky. We can hear the thunder rumble at times as this front, the storm front approaches us. It's not quite to 43. A big bolt just came down just to the east.
Yeah, how we're watching the lightning popping, and
but it's.
I was just going to say, we're watching the lightning popping. We can see the low-level clouds pretty good from your camera as you're riding up of 43. I know you're still south of the possible tornadic signature, but just being able to see the clouds kind of bubble down close to the surface like that is certainly, it is an eerie look just from our vantage point watching it on the monitor. Are the winds really fierce where you are? Or can you feel it moving the car at all?
Absolutely, we can, Michael. It's gusty at the moment. No, then all of a sudden a big gust comes and the whole car shifts on the road a little bit. We felt a few instances of that. The rain has slacked up at the moment, but the lightning is sporadic, periodic, and you can see these, as you mentioned, the low-lying clouds moving over 43. We're just coming into Springfield now, which is south of Thomasville just a bit. So we're approaching Thomasville, coming into Springfield right now. We are in the warned area out in front of that area you've been talking about, and we're trying to keep a very close eye ahead of us, and we're moving at a cautious pace, about 45 miles an hour right now, just making sure that we don't drive into something we don't want to. But this is a big flash of lightning, as you may have seen right there, and thunder rumbling as we approach Thomasville on 43. I believe this is the area you and Matt have been warning people about and talking about. So we're, of course, just trying to find a good vantage point and approach carefully and wait this out and see what happens.
Definitely, Hal, because
that's what it looks like here, Michael and Matt.
Yeah, we do not want to put you in any kind of danger. The tornadic signature that we're seeing on the map right now, it looks like it's right there near Glover, which is around Tallahassee Springs Road, which is 43. So it's north of Rural and west of Thomasville, right there near the community of Glover. Right there around Tallahassee Springs Road is the possible tornado. We've been tracking that since it was showing up right around Coffeyville, and it's still moving to the north and east at 55 miles an hour, which means it will be over Thomasville in roughly the next 7 to 8 minutes. So if you've been watching our coverage and you know anyone that lives in North Clarke County who may not be paying attention to the weather at all, you got to tell them to get in shelter. They're running out of time because that signature is still holding together over Glover, just like it was over Coffeyville several minutes ago. And our own Hal Shurik is on his way there right now. We're going to keep him obviously away from the tornadic signature. We're not going to put any of our crews in any kind of danger, but you could see from his vantage point the bubbling of the clouds, how they were very eerie down closer to the surface, and you can just tell in that type of setup that the weather has the potential to be very, very dangerous, and we're certainly seeing things play out that way. Now, we just got another sweep scan, and you can still see a tornadic signature just between Tallahassee Springs and Thomasville. It is weaker than it was when it was over Coffeyville. Man, I don't know if we got anything on the debris tracker, but we'll take a quick look.
It's too noisy.
Yeah, it's too. One problem we run into is because the radar is located at the Mobile Regional Airport. Thomasville is so far away from that, and because the beam goes in a straight line and the Earth curves, the farther the distance you go, the beam ends up looking more aloft than it does into the surface. So that's one issue we have when you are tracking tornadoes that are very far away from the radar beam. But the possible tornado is right there west of Thomasville, and it's marching its way to the northeast. At it's at 55 miles per hour. I'm trying to see if that if it's at 65. I don't understand. Matt, is that the same warning? The one they 927?
Yes, they just updated it.
Okay, so yeah, this one's just been updated, and it's now moving at 65 miles per hour. It was moving at 55. Now it's moving at 65. So this is a very fast-moving storm, which means Thomasville, it's going to be to you within the next 2 to 3 minutes. It is going to be less time than what we had estimated because we were going at a 55-mile-an-hour speed, and now it's moving at 65 miles an hour, and that would be it right there around Tejada Springs Road. West of Thomasville, right there where you see that little shade of green, that's your possible tornado, and it's just west of US 43. It is very close to that US 43 corridor. No one needs to be driving through that right now, and you can see Hal's vantage point. I mean, my gosh, look at how much uglier the weather's gotten in just the last couple of minutes since we checked in with him. We're obviously going to keep him south from where that possible tornado is, but you can see right there that is why we always implore you, the viewer, to stay off the road. You don't want to even try to drive through that. And Matt, if you pull back really quick, it looks like we did get our first flash flood warning. We mentioned that could be a potential hazard today, and we do have our first one that includes parts of Washington and Greene counties because of this heavy rain that's rolling over the same places. So if you live in a low-lying area or a zone that's typically flood prone, this could be a very rough day for you. But that is just one of several issues that we're expecting today. Flash flooding being one, gusty winds another, tornadoes another, hail another, and the possible tornado is right there with that dark shade of red right there approaching Thomasville around US 43, and it's right around Tejada Springs Road, and that thing's moving at 65 miles an hour to the north and east. And when you watch that in real time from Hal's camera, you can see just how much uglier the weather's gotten in just a matter of minutes. I mean, it was no more than less than 10 minutes ago. It was mainly dry, and you could just see the clouds kind of bubbling at the surface. And Hal was mentioning how those gusts of wind would kind of move the storm tracker vehicle. But it looks like we're getting him into a safe and secure location so we don't run him right up into that possible tornado. But he's angling it where we can get a pretty good shot, so you can continue to monitor what the sky shot is at the surface for Thomasville. Now, if you know anyone in this area, look at the trees right there. I mean, those things are whipping right now. The sad thing is, Matt, you still see some cars moving north, and hopefully they know that they could be running right into a dangerous tornado.
I was about to break in that Hal needed to stop and get to the side before he got a little bit too far to the north here, because you can see how it's whipping through. He's just to the south of that signature there in Thomasville, and you can see how those trees are whipping around, and of course the rain coming down in sheets right now up there in Clarke County. Look at it hitting it's Highway 43. It's the main drag through town, and of course that's why you see the traffic. But boy, look how heavy that rain is.
Is that
right
an inflow notch right here, Matt? Where my hand is that an inflow coming in on that?
Could be a small one, yes.
Yeah.
And we'll continue to monitor that. But I'll get back to the velocity. I mean, it's right there. I mean, so Hal is right dead in Thomasville right now. It's just south of the signature here, and that's why he's getting the worst of the weather right there along Highway 43. That wind whipping around, that very, very heavy rain. So once again, this is a tornado warning for northern Clarke County up around Thomasville. The signature isn't extremely defined, but we don't expect that really up here. We get these quick spin-up tornadoes, most likely is what we're looking at. We know it was on the ground for a while in the western part of Clarke County because there was a debris ball that picked up very well on the radar. But for now, we got a very strong wind coming right through Thomasville.
Yeah, and you could just see how scary that shot looked from Hal's camera. That camera is located on his dashboard. And when we were chatting with him just 10, 15 minutes ago, there was hardly any rain. You could see the ominous clouds, and you could see the swirling of those clouds. But, boy, he moved in close to Thomasville, and you saw just how scary things got. It's one thing to show it to you on a radar image. It's another thing to show you the live video of it, and that's why we're so glad we have these reporters in the field. And this is just from Hal's vantage point is still south of where the actual tornadic signature is. So that gives you an indicator that where that signature was, the system even worse than what we were seeing from Hal's dash cam video. But we're showing you the radar where the storm is right over Thomasville. So here's US 43. 43, and you've got the tornado right there in the northern edge of Clarke County, right around US 43. That looks like a weak inflow notch on the radar, and then your tornado would wrap around just to the south of that storm inflow, and it's going to be veering its way north and east toward Pine Hill, and it's going to continue moving at about 65 miles an hour as it continues to march its way to the north and to the east. It's doing so very quickly. As Matt pointed out, it's difficult to get good velocity reads this far north because of how far it is from the Mobile Regional Airport. That's where the radar beam is located. Signature. Right there we see that light shade of green, so it's still alive on our radar, but it's veering toward Finley Crossing and eventually going to pass over towards Sunny South and then toward Pine Hill. This is Alabama Highway 5, and it runs east to west, and you can see Alabama Highway 5 will be running up toward Pine Hill, and that's where the possible tornadic signature is moving next. The tornado warning stays in play until at least 10 o'clock, and we have not seen indications of this thing weakening. If this thing was falling apart, the Weather Service would cancel it, but we have not seen that happen. The signature has stayed intact. The tornado threat has stayed alive and well, and so the warning is remaining in play all the way till 10. As this thing continues its track across State Highway 5. And this is also, keep in mind, just one part of the giant line of storms that is still producing straight line winds of 70 miles per hour. That line is now east of Grove Hill, approaching Jackson, which is in southern Clarke County. And then you've got flash flood warnings in northern Greene and Washington counties because of the heavy bands of rain and storms that are showing up in that part of the area. Now, if there's one piece of good news we can tell you, it's that those of you in northwestern Clarke County, North Washington County, your severe threat, at least for the moment, is over. You're not done with it for the week because we could still have the potential for more as we head in toward this evening and tomorrow. That threat will be lower, but it's not zero. But for now, you at least have a few hours where you're not going to have to be concerned about a severe weather threat because you're now on the back edge of the main line. The main line producing one tornado warning, but it's right in Thomasville. Now, when this thing goes off into Pine Hill, this is in Wilcox County, just like the last one we saw. When it moves out of Clarke County, we will go back to programming because we won't have any tornado warnings that are active in the counties in our viewing area. But we want to stay with this as it gets ready to work its way across Alabama Highway 5. But when the signature moves officially into Wilcox County, we will end, at least for the moment, our tornado coverage, but we'll jump right back on if any new warnings are issued. So Matt's pulling up some of the locations that are in the path of this. Interjects Tube, Airmont Cemetery, Shady Grove Church, Airmount Church, the In-N-Out Quick Stop are all located around Alabama Highway 5 between Thomasville and Pine Hill. So if any of those spots sound familiar to you, make sure you know that anyone near that area needs to be in shelter and away from doors and away from windows and in the lowest level of their home as we watch that signature veer its way closer toward Wilcox County. The Weather Service just pointed out that broader rotation has now passed through Thomasville and is moving into western Wilcox near Pine Hill. So that puts it out of our area, which is good. Now, that does not mean we are done for the day with severe weather coverage. We may have to jump on at a moment's notice, but for the time being, we're going to go to commercial. When we come back from commercial, we will resume Studio 10. For meteorologist Matt Barentine and meteorologist Michael White in the Fox 10 Storm Tracker Center, we will be following this very closely throughout the remainder of the morning. Have a very safe rest of your Tuesday and stand by for more updates.